Hello and welcome to ITV News West Country.
Thank you for joining us. The headlines this evening. A watchdog finds the Exeter academic detained in the UAE on spying charges was failed by the government, who should have noticed he was being tortured.
It confirms what I've been saying the whole time. It's a very small step on that process to recovery.
How no-fault evictions are leaving families in Cornwall living in caravans and hotels.
I couldn't stop crying. I'd take the kids to the park and I'd feel my eyes sort of welling up.
Also tonight, they've waited long enough. Plymouth Argyle are less than 24 hours away from playing in the Championship.
We're at the Sidmouth Folk Festival where the sun is shining right now, but how will it contend with the weather this weekend?
And whatever you're up to this weekend, whether it's festivals or just getting out and about, we have some more wet and windy weather on the way the second time this week, except this one is a named storm, and I'll tell you all about it at the end of the programme.
Good evening and welcome to the programme. First tonight, an academic from Exeter is demanding an apology from the Foreign Office after a report found it failed to spot he was being tortured in the Middle East.
Matthew Hedges was on a research trip when he was arrested at Dubai Airport in 2018 and accused of being a spy. He denies those claims.
Well, now a parliamentary report has said he was failed by the British government and he should receive a formal apology. David Wood reports.
Matthew Hedges has been safely back home for nearly 5 years now, but the trauma of being detained for 6 months in the United Arab Emirates goes on.
My condition has improved. When I first arrived, I wasn't able to even leave the house. I was struggling to leave my bedroom within the house. Now I can go around, I can do things, but it doesn't mean that I'm healed. I have nightmares quite regularly. I have panic attacks.
The academic from Exeter was arrested at Dubai Airport in May 2018, accused of spying. The government there says he was then convicted of espionage in a fair and balanced trial, and his claims of being tortured are untrue.
They deliberately kept lights on to try and make it more difficult for me to sleep. I didn't have a bed for a long time. I had to get permission to go to the toilet where I would be blindfolded, I would be handcuffed, my ankles tied.
The Parliamentary Ombudsman has ruled the Foreign Office failed to protect Matthew Hedges and didn't notice he could have been tortured.
In the first meeting that we had, was accompanied by armed guards dressed in black, with machine guns, the state security prosecutor, and we were both informed that we couldn't talk about the case. We were sat very far apart. There was clear coercion. My behaviour, my presence showed multiple signs of torture and abuse.
The Foreign Office says the best interests of British nationals, including those detained overseas, is at the heart of its consular work, and it will now review this Ombudsman's report. It hasn't apologised to Mr Hedges.
This is a small victory for me personally because it confirms what I've been saying the whole time. It's a very small step on that process to recovery. As a survivor of it, it's huge to get this understanding, to get this acknowledgement.
Matthew may never fully recover from his ordeal. He says an apology from the Foreign Office would be fundamental to any recovery, as it would prove the authorities here accept they could have done more to help him. David Wood, ITV News.
Next tonight, a single mother from Cornwall has described how being evicted from her home and forced to live in a caravan park has impacted her family and her mental health.
Hannah Eastman and her 2 young sons became homeless after being given a no-fault eviction notice. They're now living in temporary accommodation. Cornwall Council has admitted the situation is dire and totally unacceptable. Sam Blackledge has more.
I couldn't stop crying. I'd take the kids to the park and I'd feel my eyes sort of welling up. I was so low and I was so anxious. You can't live because you don't know where you're going to be in the next 5 minutes. Your life's on hold.
Evicted, alone and with nowhere to go. Hannah and her young sons, 5-year-old Thorin and Wren, aged 15 months, were forced to leave their home earlier this year by a landlord who wanted to turn the place into an Airbnb.
I was having to pack, find storage space, and still trying to desperately look for a property. And the council were quite hard to communicate with.
At first, the family were moved to this caravan park on the outskirts of Newquay. It was a roof over their heads, but it left Hannah feeling isolated, depressed, and even more cut off.
I don't drive, so it was a 2-mile walk to the closest bus stop and shop. We didn't have access to like pharmacies or doctors or anything without sort of walking those 2 miles. And we've been removed from all our family and friends, our support system. We're somewhere that's completely alien to us.
Oh, wow. The house they're in now is another temporary stopgap. The books and toys, portable signs of a family home, which will soon be packed up and shipped out once again. The government has promised to ban no-fault evictions under the Renters Reform Bill, which is going through Parliament, but it could take 2 or 3 years to become law.
It's so wrong that there's families living in caravans and hotels when there's all these 2-bed, 3-bed cottages. It's just backwards and it doesn't make sense.
We've spoken to people who are living in caravan parks and in tiny hotel rooms. That's not acceptable in this day and age, is it?
No, by no means is it acceptable, and it really shows the dire situation that we find ourselves in. What we're trying to do right now at Cornwall Council, though, is to really start to address those people who are in temporary and emergency accommodation. What we are doing is trying to build, buy, beg, borrow as much accommodation as we possibly can and make it fit for people to live in.
As the holiday season reaches its peak and Cornwall proudly shows off its good side, there's no doubt there are still many hidden problems. Sam Blackledge, ITV News.
To other news from across the region now, and 5 new medical centres will be created in the southwest, managed by a private health company. It's been announced. The government says it'll cut NHS waiting times with more than 200,000 extra tests, checks and scans every year. Clinics in Redruth, Torbay and Yeovil could be up and running by next year.
Candlelit vigil will take place this evening to mark the start of Plymouth Pride. The event will pay tribute to Terry Sweet and Bernard Hawken, who were victims of a homophobic attack in Central Park in 1995. Terry died and Bernard was left with life-changing injuries. Well, you're watching ITV News right here in the West Country with Seb and Ellie. Thank you for joining us this Friday evening. Still ahead before 6:30. Richard Lawrence is in the Sidmouth for us for the annual Folk Festival. A lot of dancing, Richard, but a close eye on the weather as well.
Yes, so far so good, and nothing is going to dampen the spirits of people here.
And Charlie is out and about for the weather. Charlie, is it good news for everyone heading to festivals this weekend?
Part of the weekend will be good news, but we're awaiting Storm Anthony. Can you believe it? A named storm in August as we head through the course of tomorrow, and I'll talk you through it in a few minutes' time.
First, though, the start of the new football season always brings excitement and anticipation, but in Plymouth it's extra special, where Argyle are back in the Championship for the first time in more than a decade.
It's a multi-million-pound boost to the city's economy too, with thousands of fans descending on Devon from all corners of the country. Jackie Bird reports on the Pilgrims' progress after last season's promotion.
It feels like just yesterday this was happening. Promoted to the Championship for the first time in 13 years. And then this. Champions of League One.
Come on, you Jammers!
And then this, a triumphant parade for the fans through the streets of Plymouth. But while the champagne corks were still popping, plans were already being laid on how to tackle the challenge of the Championship. And that started with recruitment. The backbone of Argyle's success last year were its loan signings. They became fan favourites, Young Player of the Year and the source of many a fabulous song. The thought that they could become Argyle players felt like a pipe dream. In fact, Simon Hallett told me beside the pitch at the last game of the season that it wouldn't happen. But could a trip to the Glastonbury Festival over the summer with the manager have been the reason Barley Mumba became Argyle's first £1 million signing?
Yeah, it might have been tactical that. Going to watch some random folk band with him in his ear for 4 days. He got sick of me. Look, again, I can only thank them for the support that we get from Simon and Jane and all of the board really, and Andrew and all of that, because without their support and obviously their backing of, we've got ideas on the coaching staff and a recruitment team, and we've got these ideas of players we want to bring, but if we don't get that support and they don't back us, then it's just not possible. So yeah, hopefully we've made shrewd investments and they see a return on it in the future.
Barley was quickly followed by Morgan Whittaker. Both players have clearly got Plymouth in their hearts, not a second thought about coming here.
No, it was always going to be here. I think it's just everything. I'd be stupid to turn down a place where the fans are so on side, the manager is so good for me. So yeah, I'd just be stupid not to come here.
It was Argyle, holds a special place in my heart. My family are proud of me, coming here and playing here. And like I said, it's a special club for me, and I feel like it's the right one, especially right now in this moment of my career.
Returning to the Championship is a big deal for this club and for its fans.
I think it feels different this season because when you go up to the Championship, you are admittedly a huge step, but a very close to getting into the Premier League, and that is the promised land. Now, no one's going to sit and tell you that Argyle are going to get promoted to the Premier League this season, but they are close.
It's going to be amazing. I think last season was one of the best seasons I've ever covered Argyle, so I'm just really excited. And of course, Neil Warnock, you couldn't write the script really, could you?
We've been in the wilderness and now finally we're back and we're only one step away from the Premiership. Got to be excited, haven't you?
Come 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, this place will be jam-packed full of the Green Army, all getting ready to cheer their team on for the first game in the Championship. Jackie Bird, ITV News, Home Park.
Well, our sports reporter Ross Arnott is in the studio with us. Ross, anticipation clearly high, but that season opener tomorrow is just adding to it.
Yeah, it definitely will. A lot of excitement, I'm sure, for the Green Army. But there's a really nice story about it as well. They're playing Huddersfield. Now, do you know who they're managed by? Any guesses? I've been talking about it all day in the newsroom. Neil Warnock, they're managed by. And obviously, that's a really good story. We filmed with him last year. A bit of an Argyle legend as a manager. He told me he was 99% retired. He's taken a job. So when I spoke to him this week, there was only one place to start, wasn't there?
Huddersfield came onto me. It's a club I've always had a special place in my heart, and Sharon and I were really looked after when we first came here. So it was an opportunity to put something back into the game. Really, they needed a bit of help, and I'm really pleased that that I managed to help them.
I remember speaking to you as well about a year ago, and you telling me the stories of the teams you used to bring down to the West Country for pre-season games, and you've done the same this year. You played Liskeard and Tavistock. How did you find it? Very good, yeah.
It's one of those things. Unusually, we actually had some rain this year. I don't normally get much rain down in Cornwall, but it didn't affect us too much. Didn't affect the barbecue anyhow. That was okay. So it was. It's always good. I learn a lot about the players in that week. Make decisions on certain players, and nothing's changed. And I did make a few decisions when I was down there. And it was great building that team spirit up.
And, you talk about the start. That's what pre-season's for, preparing for the weekend. You must have had a little chuckle when you saw that you would be playing Argyle at Home Park first game.
Well, I thought it was a fiddle, if I'm honest. I thought, don't give me that about computers coming in with that. I'm sure we'll read about it in 20 years.
And what do you make of their chances, obviously, this year? Because promotion from League One, and it's going to be an emotional moment for you, I'm sure, going back to Home Park where you've got so many memories.
Yeah, I think Stephen's got a good squad, me, and I think they'll more than hold the head above water, me. So, I think that they'll enjoy it as well, because like us, we're both 80-1, I think it is, second favourites to go down. So everywhere we go, we're going to be underdogs, and I think we both enjoy that, really.
Well, best of luck with the match at the weekend. Not too much, though, with the West Country hat on, I must be said. But thank you very much for your time, Neil.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Yeah, great to chat to him. I mean, he is a bit of a legend, but yeah, as I said, don't want to wish him too much luck.
No.
Big match on Saturday. Obviously not the only fixtures taking place, though. Let's take a look at the other ones taking place as well. In League One, Exeter City away at Wickham. And then look at that, all those games there in the National League South. So Torquay United, Taunton, Yeovil, Weymouth and Truro. It's a real West Country affair, isn't it? We'll be sure to let you know how all of those get on. But there you go, that's your sport.
Thank you very much, Ross. And next time we will listen to you when you're talking.
Thank you very much.
Now, our region's A-Road network is something millions of us rely on every day. And this summer marks exactly a century since they came into being.
Yes, many of these routes have ancient foundations, some dating back to Roman times. But 100 years ago, a modern naming system was developed to help motorists. Nick Smith reports.
The motor car. And perhaps no other invention has so effectively affected the way our lives are run.
The early 20th century saw the birth of the motoring age. But just as cars started to revolutionise our world, our road network had to adapt to match their capabilities. Before our expansive motorway network was built, A roads were our vital link between our major towns and cities. But their predecessors were often given ad hoc names, and if you weren't local, you might struggle to find your way around. That was until in 1923, a standardised system of numbers and letterings came into the naming convention, and our A and B roads were born. A zoning system was devised under the Great Trunk Roads Act, based on routes leading from certain regions to London. So most A roads in the far southwest start with the number 3, including the iconic routes like the A303, the A30 and the A38 linking Devon and Cornwall.
Ministry of Transport in 1923 had an orderly process of making a single route with a name. And they went radially around until you come down the 3s, which is the route to the southwest. And so if you come from London, you hit the M3, A303, and then the A30 makes it really easy for people to know, plan routes, but also people like us who maintain the roads to know what we're talking about.
The 100-year celebration is a huge milestone for us. The number of A roads has grown significantly, and it's all about being able to connect the country from north to south to east to west. Whether you're somebody that's going to the seaside for the weekend, or whether you're an organisation that's responsible for moving freight across our network.
Meanwhile, the iconic design of our road signage is celebrating a 60-year milestone. Until the early 1960s, place names or driver warnings were presented in block capitals, often difficult to read when driving at speed. But the War Boys report in 1963 backed a pictogram system of symbols and using lowercase lettering for place names, making them easier to decipher from a distance. Margaret Calvert was one of the lead designers and tells me at the time it was a huge undertaking.
Because it was actually quite a momentous job. Probably the largest graphic design job ever undertaken, because it was a complete system. I know I spent a lot of time working on them, especially the deer and the cow and the horse, the roadwork sign, which people tend to think it's a man having difficulty with a large umbrella. I don't mind that. I get teased about it quite a lot, but it doesn't worry me.
So next time you're trundling down your local A road and passing those signs to direct you on your trip, remember, they've had quite a journey of their own too. Nick Smith, ITV News.
I felt like I learnt so much during that report. So much I didn't know.
Full of pub facts.
And imagine your job being designing those road signs, things that we see every single day. Fascinating, isn't it?
Well, speaking of fascinating, 70,000 people are expected to descend on Sidmouth over the next week for the annual Folk Festival.
Organisers will have an eye on the skies, given the forecast for terrible weather tomorrow. But Richard Lawrence is there for us now. Richard, they're ready for all eventualities, aren't they?
Absolutely, but right now the weather's right at the back of the mind because it's been clear and dry for this afternoon, and everybody's really enjoying the full swing of a ceilidh here in the pub garden of the Anchor Inn, one of the main sponsors of the event and one of the many venues for the festival itself that will be taking place over the next 7 days. So while there might be some disruption tomorrow, people aren't overly worried, and I guarantee there is something here for people of all ages, as you can see here in the garden itself.
Wherever you are in Sidmouth over the next week, you're guaranteed to be just a few steps away from the next piece of music you'll find. From high-quality amateur musicians to professionals in the purpose-built venues.
She is filled to the brim of sweetness, cares and subtle charm.
Josie Duncan from Stornoway was here supporting Barbara Dixon this afternoon.
Sidmouth event is such a special one. First of all, it's so far to get to, so every time I'm here it feels like holiday, which is really nice. And I also love being next to the ocean when I'm singing. It doesn't happen that much on tour when I come south.
Sidmouth is normally a genteel, quiet town that really comes alive during the folk festival, as almost every part of the town centre is taken over by a folk-related music event.
There's something for everyone, really. Young and old and all the peculiars in between, you know. So it's just anything goes.
It's really coming alive.
Yes. Before you know, our Sidmouth is very quiet city, and we hope people come to see and enjoy the kind of festival. So,
how long have you been coming here?
My 47th consecutive year. 47 years, yeah.
There are more than 750 events planned for the 7-day festival.
It covers music, dance, storytelling, workshops. There are 150 different workshops where people can learn from just the basics to some masterclasses even.
And then there are places like the Bedford Hotel, where musicians from all over the country and often further afield too gather for a good old session.
It's really spontaneous, I guess. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, you either know the tune, you don't. You kind of pick it up as you go along. It's great.
One musician leads and the others follow.
And we could have stayed there all afternoon, to be fair, but there is plenty to do here. On all seriousness about the issue of the weather, well, there could be disruption tomorrow. There are a number of marquees that are out on the outskirts of the town and a campsite too. The organisers are looking closely at those and will be assessing the wind tomorrow morning to ensure that disruption is kept to a minimum, but they know that campers will have to put up with an awful lot of mud in their particular fields over the next couple of days. But for the rest of the festival, they're optimistic.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Richard Lawrence, thank you very much indeed. So they're staying positive in Sidmouth, but elsewhere the predicted bad weather has hit Dunk as well. Airfield's 80th anniversary celebrations. Organisers have had to cancel tomorrow's events for safety reasons, but it will go ahead on Sunday, featuring a host of activities including Spitfire flights and military displays.
The aircraft probably wouldn't be flying and there wouldn't be as much out on the static display because certainly the fabric designed aircraft wouldn't be able to sit out in that weather. So hence why we're taking the decision, but from our perspective it just means that we can push harder for Sunday to make it a celebration to remember.
The weather is really taking a bit of a guiding road on this, aren't they? Let's talk to Charlie on this. Charlie, you're out and about. How rough is it going to get?
Well, really rough. I mean, it's going to be similar to what we saw last Tuesday and Wednesday, really. And this is now a named storm, Anthony, the first one of the season that the Met Office has named anyway. And we've got a lot of warnings you've probably gathered, certainly one from the RNLI, who on Tuesday and Wednesday saved 10 lives from people trapped in rip currents as that wet and windy weather went through. And they're suggesting that if you're going to go to a beach, which you probably don't want to do tomorrow, go between 10 and 6, because then it'll be patrolled, there'll be lifeguards there that can help you. We've also heard from the RAC, of course, there'll be thousands of people on the roads as we head to this weekend. Here's what they had to say.
As many as 4 million people expected to travel, either going off on holiday or coming back. The advice would really be to slow down and take extra care to ensure you've got plenty of room to stop should you have to. The roads are going to be slippery, so stopping distances will be greater, and also caravans and lorries are going to be buffeted by the wind.
So yeah, some serious warnings there. We wouldn't really expect it this time of year. Fine, autumn, winter, that's kind of par for the course, but not in the early part of August. Let's take a look at that warning the Met Office has issued. Just see how expansive it is. It covers good portions of Wales and a lot of southwest England. We'll have gusts of wind, certainly around the coast, of up to 65 miles an hour. So it might even be a bit windier than the one we saw earlier in the week. Elsewhere, those wind gusts will be sort of between 40 and 50 miles an hour. Added to that, a lot of rain coming through. So let's take a look at all those details.
Whatever the weather, it always feels like home. Valent Heat Pumps and Boilers sponsor ITV West Country weather.
So very wet as we head into the start of the weekend. We're going to see some heavy rain working through tonight, but on Sunday that system moves through and it'll all calm down, leaving us with, well, something perhaps not too dissimilar from today's weather. But let's take a look at the Atlantic. We can see that low working its way in, Storm Anthony working its way right across the UK. A lot of isobars, a lot of rain coming through, but it doesn't last for too long. And on Sunday, that high pressure just nudges ever so slightly closer in towards the West Country, so things will become a little bit calmer. As for the rest of this evening, I mean, it's pretty fine out there. It's been a nice dry day. It's felt quite warm. There are some gaps in the clouds, so you might see a little bit of late sunshine. But as we head through this evening, clouds are going to gather. We're going to see rain starting to work its way in. And into the early hours, the winds will start to pick up a little bit as well. So that storm will really start to gather pace as we work our way towards dawn. Temperatures down to 13 or 14 degrees. It's going to be a mild night, not that you'll notice, because when you wake up on Saturday, you'll be greeted by a lot of wet weather, I think, and those winds will just strengthen further as we head through the course of the morning. The rain goes through fairly quickly as we head through Saturday. It'll end up being a real bright but very windy day, and a core of strong winds sort of pushing through Devon around the middle part of the day, I think, as well. And temperatures not that high, 18, 19, maybe 20 at a push, but it'll feel really quite rough, I think, in those strong winds. High tide, the seas are going to be huge, I think, as we head through tomorrow, between around 8 and 11 in the morning, and then as we head through the latter part of the evening towards midnight. But on Sunday, everything should calm down a bit. Occasional showers, a bit of a breeze, but some sunshine. Looks pretty fine on Monday, not too dissimilar from today, but on Tuesday, quite a bit of cloud and some patchy light rain, just spoiling things once again.
Valent Heat Pumps and Boilers sponsor ITV West Country weather.
OK, Charlie, thank you very much. Now, a popular story online today is about a woman who got more than she bargained for when she bought some eggs. Chloe Greenwood incubated and hatched a duckling from a pack of eggs bought at Morrison's.
Yeah, the duckling called Buddy is now part of the family, and you can see that full story on our website this evening. For now, it is goodbye from the two of us. I'll be back with the late news at 10:30.
After the break, the ITV News continues. But from us, goodbye.
Bye-bye.